Hey guys, Harv here, and welcome back to the Kerbal space program. This is Space Tourism, the series in which we are gonna put tourists in space. And for the past 2 episodes, or 3 episodes actually, we've been dealing with space planes. But now we're back here, temporarily. In this episode we're also going to be dealing with space planes, but this is our Jool space station, the object of our tourism currently. Although there is going to be a lot of other bodies included. But yes, this is our Jool space station. We've got fuel, we've got some pushing capability, we've got a crew transport shuttle, though it can only hold 3 pilots. We've got and a probe, and solar panels, and a few other bits and bobs here and there. Nothing really quite set up there. It's kind of a waypoint for whatever missions we want to actually do around the Jool system. For instance, putting a base on Laythe, which I think should probably be the next target. Now that this is made, or at least version 1 of this is made, I'm going to actually improve it now, because unfortunately the passenger SSTO Laythe Mark 1 can't land. And I've been thinking about the problems, and I think I know it's just simply that there's not enough lift. It is quite a heavy space plane. It says light in the name when it is actually heavier than the original, which was like 2 meters wide, and that doesn't sound very big, but no, 2 meter diameter body with big wings on the side, you know. So more lift. We've got some structural wings at the front with the canard still on there. Going to put some more flaps on the back 2 wings and put these flat wing surfaces on the body itself, which I've done before with great effect, and it does seem to help. I've managed to keep the centre of lift just in and behind the centre of mass, which is where you want it most of the time, and it does seem to have not really caused too much problems. Hopefully the mass and the added drag won't cause too many problems either, but we'll see about that. So yeah, that's those things changed. Now the other things I want to change in order to try and make it a bit more manoeuvrable, a bit, you know, calmer whilst flying, is the outside tail fins, because those things are a bit too wide and sticky forwards for me, and similarly these canards are a bit too sticky forwards for me. What we could try is something on the actual body itself, but we are docking on the top, so that's not a particularly good idea. What I was thinking was these delta wings on the side, just tilted up that bit in order to make it look a bit more smooth, and also we won't have to add any other flaps onto it because the delta wings do have their own flaps built quite well into the body there. And that's the plane, I think. Just moving the main body flat surfaces to try and compensate for the added lift there, and it seems to be working perfectly fine. So the passenger SSTO Laythe Mark 2. The Mark 2 adds more wing surface, or has a greater wing surface area, in the hopes that maybe, just maybe, it will actually be able to land. It's a bit up in the air. Oh, I knocked the pop filter. Hopefully you didn't hear that. It's a bit up in the air, but you know, we're going to test it now. So, launch! Bam! Off the runway. Wow, wasn't that quick? Yes, that's literally the real-time acceleration of this plane. It's really, really quite fast. Stares at the camera that he doesn't have. So yes, we're bringing it round, and now we're going to simulate as if we've just come back from a mission. Why have we got all this fuel? Well, obviously we refueled in orbit, Harvey. You know, that's clearly what happened. So we've come in now, we've deorbited, we're coming in for a landing, and we just bring it in, swap back to 1 or 2 times speed. Is it 1 time speed? That's 1 time speed actually, yes, 1 time speed. Open up the landing gear. I was considering moving the landing gear. I thought they might be the source of the problem. But just by flying this now, I can tell that it is acting a lot more like a plane, as in it's gliding forwards, not just being thrusted forwards by its engines. And there we go, that's landing. So it seems to work absolutely fine. Previously it was a horizontally taking off rocket, as in, yeah, sure, it would skim along the runway and then pull up, but it didn't really have the lift to support itself in the air. It was just pushing itself up using its engines. If it didn't have any air-breathing engines, it might as well have just gone straight up like a normal rocket, like this rocket that we're about to build right now. So we've sorted out these single stage to orbit. In the past 2 episodes we had the same version of plane, or model I should say, and we were testing it. First we tested whether it could get into orbit. Yes, it can. Second, we tested whether it could dock in orbit. Yes, it can. Third thing, we need to actually use it. It's rated for testing. We can actually use it now. But before we do, we're going to put up something, a bit of a target for it. So we've got this space station in low Kerbal orbit, and we've got a space station in Jool orbit. Maybe we need some method of getting from one to the other. Now, I haven't actually done any practical testing on this. I know in my mind what can get to Jool and what can get back from Jool to Kerbal, and this seems like it would be able to. I'm just worried about making it convenient, not too big, not too small. In short, I don't really know whether this is going to work, but I certainly hope. We've got quite a lot of fuel, 2 engines, so it's not too inefficient and it does have some degree of thrust. We'll be able to air brake at Jool, like we have started doing. And yeah, it should be really fine. Also note that this is a passenger thing to take passengers to and from it, so they'll be in their habitation module. And if they look out those windows, they should just be able to see the very reassuring nuclear deterrent symbol? A radiation warning symbol? Yeah, they should just be able to see that, obscuring their view of space. Just a beautiful big danger sign out the window. That was intentional. Hey, I thought, it'll be interesting. I thought we would do some tests on the psychology of passengers who have to stare at that symbol as opposed to those who can just stare out into space. Just for science. It's for science! God. Right, and another thing I'm changing on the launch stage, the Spacia launch stage, is to put some RCS tanks and some RCS thrusters on it. Because I was talking recently, I was just telling people in my family, like, yeah, this is how my project is going, yeah. And they went, go away, we're bored. And I went, no, it's really interesting, really interesting. You've got to let me tell you about this. I've built this space station. I've got a plane that can go into orbit and it can. And as I talked about how we had the launch stage, because I made a space launch stage that was so good that it ended up with way too much fuel in orbit, and we had to just dump it and leave it and not do anything with it. And then they said, well, why couldn't you just dock that onto there? See, you're the rocket scientist, but you don't know. And I thought, well, I've got no RCS tanks and I've got no thrusters on there, so I can't dock it to anything. Okay, well, how about I put some RCS tanks and some thrusters on there, so I can dock it to something. Unfortunately, I have forgotten the crucial bit, which is kind of necessary for docking, and that's actually docking ports. It would probably help. Oh, look at this. Look at that tank. Hey, you see that? You see that? Wait, look down, Harvey. There you go. See that? See that tank? How it fell and bounced horizontally? That has never happened before. Never. In the history of my Spacia launch stage, that has never happened. The tank detaching and then falling down. And at the time, I thought this was a bit strange. What's changed? What's caused this to happen? And when I looked at the body of it, I could see my RCS thrusters were fine, and I couldn't see anything else that would inhibit it. And there's one very good reason for that, and that's because the thing that was inhibiting it, and the thing that was making it curve over and whatnot, destroyed itself. The falling tank collided into the RCS tank that, yes, was on the side. So somehow the other one escaped death. We do have one RCS tank left on the side, but yeah, the other one is completely gone. So I could notice it, even for this very light RCS tank, I could notice that it was offset my mass slightly along the, it wasn't symmetrical anymore. That's really, really quite cool. It was also kind of annoying until I figured out what it was. But yeah, so we don't have any docking ports, we have half the RCS fuel, and we have only got a few thrusters. So this first iteration of being able to dock in the launch stage didn't go particularly well, but it will in the future, because now I've talked about it, people in the comments will be shouting at me if I don't do something about it. So yeah, I'll be able to think of something we can actually do that's useful with those tanks, because it's such a waste putting these up there and not actually doing anything with them. They might even start their own space station, similarly to how kids who are kicked out of friendship groups band together. We're going to make our own gang. Okay. Like that. Exactly like that. Yes. There's the Alcaro space station. And we're using this to bring it down. You can see the solitary RCS tank just on the side there. And they are actually quite good for maneuvering and docking. And for some reason I was using fuel from the actual module itself, because I attached it via a docking port. And that must have been my subconscious going, yes, you need to put a docking port on the tank. And I go, okay, docking port. But the docking port is not on there anymore. It was on the module. So this thing can't dock, but it can maneuver and it can burn its engine because it has got a probe on there with some power generation. So I'm just going to burn it along the retrograde and deorbit it into the ocean. Yeah, that's what I think of you and your own gangs. Yeah. But yes, so we bring this thing back. We've got our... This is our crew shuttle, which we don't know whether it'll work. I thought the other one was our crew shuttle. No, this is our LKO Arrow Jool shuttle. You know, going from low Kerbal orbit to Jool. Whether it's actually going to be going from Jool to low Kerbal orbit, it depends on how well it functions. It should be able to. In fact, yeah, it should be able to. So we dock it onto the side, just park it anywhere really. At this point, I'm not really caring about where it goes, just want to dock it on there. And then I guess we can get on with the other part of this mission. So we've built that, we've put that up on the station, we've docked it. Now in order to actually test how it works, we should probably put some Kerbals in it. Well, actually no, in order to test how it works, we probably should just do it unmanned first. I'm just going to put some Kerbals in it anyway. Actually no, what we might do in the next episode is launch a rocket and just launch one of those again and just send it straight out to Jool and see what happens. That would probably be a good idea. Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't really think about doing that before, otherwise I would have done it with that module. So what happens now is that we go to the runway, we're going to abort that launch apparently, we're going to go to the Astronaut Space Center, Assignment Center, or whatever it's called, and we're going to find some good candidates. So, what we want are people who are extremely clever and very courageous. So, this guy, who is very courageous, but, you know, clever. In terms of Kerbal averages, he's probably above the average. Next guy hasn't got any courage because we need some sort of lab rat to see how people deal with stress in the, in the face of this radiation warning sign. And we've got a few other people. I've never lost the spaceman, a Kerbal Naut, I mean. I've never lost the Kerbal Nauts. Did you see that? Did you see that tab? Did you see that? Did you see that? Did you see that tab? Never lost one. Never lost one. Absolutely never. I don't know why there's no one in there. There really should be. I'm pretty sure we have killed some Kerbals in our time on space tourism. We wouldn't get the hype in the media if a few people died due to accidents. Because that's what we need. We're a tourist company. We are a company. We need people to die. Yeah. So, on the runway, in the plane, Matt Kerman, the only one who's trained to use the single stage to orbit, and along with his 4 passengers, who are also in command modules. Not trained to use the single stage to orbit, but actually capable of taking control of the single stage to orbit. I wonder if there's a way you could, like, deactivate control mode. But that would probably come back to kick you in the arse later. And there's the moon up ahead of us. Someone in the back going, "Hey, look, there's the moon. Why don't we just go there?" And Matt Kerman knows, no. Even this vastly superior version, the Mark II of the light single stage to orbit, cannot go to the moon under its own fuel. If we get into orbit and dock and refuel, we probably could land on the moon. That's something I think I'm going to try in a live stream, because it's not going to be part of space tourism. By the time Kerbals become advanced enough to make tourist sites on Jool, there's probably already too much competition on the moon. So, yeah. Anyway, we're at this height, we're going horizontal, and this is where sort of a catastrophe happens, and I'm going to talk about this now. I'm actually prepared to talk about it for once. So, what I'm going to do is turn off 2 of the engines as the intake falls below 0.4. So, turn on the engines, turn off 2 of them. Now, as it falls below 0.2, I need to turn off those. So, I press the key to toggle 2 engines off, or to turn all the engines off. But what it actually does, it toggles them. So, now start up the next one, which flames out, and we do an entire flat spin, and I manage to turn it off, and we carry on regardless. It seems like it hasn't inhibited our mission, doesn't it? You know, we did a flat spin. Ugh. But we end up with so little fuel in orbit that we have to take some precautions. Just to make sure we don't run out. Because this is actually not carrying tourists, it's carrying spacemen. Because, you know, we're still in testing stages of the entire space project. But it is carrying Kerbals. If this plane were to not be able to make it into orbit, fine, you know, it can go and land. It's never landed from an actual orbital mission before, so it'd probably be better if we actually try and complete the mission rather than resorting to actually having to land, you know, that dangerous thing. And we have lost a lot of fuel. So we're going to be able to get into orbit, hopefully. We're coming up to our apoapsis now. We just timed it wrong to dock with the space station. At some point, I'm going to find out exactly when to launch, so that I can actually get up into orbital height and be right near the space station. I want to be able to do that, but I always miss it just by like 1/8 of a radian, which I haven't covered in GCSE maths yet. But yeah, there we go. So we're in orbit. We've managed to make it into orbit using our space plane. But we're not going to be able to rendezvous with the station using just the space plane. So crazy as it may sound, we're going to take this thing, we're going to dock it on top in order for the offset mass to be as little as possible. And in fact, apart from that lone solitary solar panel, there is no offset mass. So far, this thing is actually entirely in the right direction, along one axis, which is really, really good, because now we're going to move the entire space station and we're going to use it to maneuver. Instead of docking the space plane to the space station, we're going to dock the space station to the space plane. And that would be a clever move, right? That's how real space missions go. What I'm trying to do now is use the nuclear engines, but I think they're thrusting into those docking ports below them, the docking array. So I'm having to actually use the main sail engine itself, which is fine, because, you know, we've got plenty of fuel. We don't really need to worry about that right now. In the future, we probably will. We'll have to go up and send more refueling tanks. Our actual refueling station module hasn't been used whatsoever. This is all on the launch stage still. Man, my SLS is really, really quite good. I should talk to NASA. I know that they're building an SLS. I should just go, look at mine. You should try and build this, because it works really, really well. I wonder how many successful flights it's got now. I wonder how many successful flights I've got now. It's nearly been 3 years of playing Kerbal Space Program. And I think on the 3-year mark I should do something, have a special of some sort. With 3 years playing Kerbal Space Program, I've probably got thousands of successful launches. Actually maybe not, maybe hundreds. It's definitely over 300. I can 90%, 95% safely say it's over 300. But anyway, we did the manoeuvring of the space station. I'm not actually going to dock the space station to the plane, because the plane does have RCS still, and it has plenty of RCS. It's just running a bit low on its rocket fuel. So we're going to use our RCS to bring ourselves in, dock onto it, transfer our passengers over, put them into the habitation module of the shuttle, and then we'll be able to go, hopefully. So bring it in close. And I think this is all still 4 times speed, isn't it? Yes, this video was a lot of sped upness. Yes, this is still 4 times speed. I seem to be getting a bit of weird lag. So 2 times speed in this video actually looks more like real time. Either that or we're just getting used to watching it at sped up speeds. My audience thinks, wow, yeah, he does things really quickly. So no, it's just sped up. I mean, I do things really quickly. Especially docking. I've got the hang of docking now. After, I don't know how many months it's been, how many docking I've done. Docking really is quite intuitive now. And there we go, bring it up, and bring it back, and dock. See? Easier done than said. So, what we're going to do now is tilt this thing, first of all, tilt the entire space station to bring it back along the normal line. The normal to the orbit, which is northern, or southern. Why is it called normal? I don't know why it's called normal. It's like, what would abnormal be? Abnormal? If normal is perpendicular to the tangential velocity vector, to the velocity vector, then abnormal you'd assume would be along the velocity vector, which doesn't sound very abnormal to me. In fact, it's very, very common, very, very normal, very sensible. But anyway, let's have a look at some IVAs. You can see from this perspective we can see a solar panel. From this perspective we can see a moon. From the other perspectives we can all see a moon. And from the cockpit we get this awesome view of Kerbal above us and of the ready to depart shuttle above us. Really quite cool. With a big docking port staring us in the face. But yeah, anyway, that's enough sightseeing. What we are going to do is make this tourist space station. And I think what's going to happen, right? The mission plan will go something like this. Because ideally, we want the tourists to have to go on EVA as little as possible, if any time as possible. Which is why I want to get working on some corridors and things, so it seems like they're not on EVA. So if it was actually pressurized, they would just be able to walk without spacesuits. But of course, because I'm doing vanilla and no modded, we can't really make all that perfect. But anyway, yes, so this is our low-flying single-stage to orbit, specifically for the single-stage to orbit space station. And what we're going to have is a higher space station. This is also for, you know, any kind of outwards to Jool mission. So the shuttle will be here, but we're going to have an outer space station for going places within the Kerbal system, just below geostationary height, which is something like 2,680,000 kilometers. So no, not kilometers, meters. 2,860,000 meters. 860,000 meters. If we have it just below there, so maybe at 2 million, we'll be able to get this nice slow panorama of the Kerbal rotating, and we'll bring the SSTO up. We'll dock it onto the space station like we have just done, refuel it like we have just done, and then we'll take the passengers who are still inside it, who are destined to go up to this high-flying space station. We'll take them in the SSTO up there. Because the SSTO, it can dock, it's got enough fuel in its tanks to perform a lot of manoeuvres in the solar system, and it should be able to get back straight from there, even probably without refueling. We'll have to do some testing. But there we go, deorbit it from that space station, having delivered its payload of passengers to the shuttle, bring it down, and that's the end of the episode, pretty much. Turn on the engines once we're within thick atmosphere. We don't want to go too low, because, well, I've actually discovered that if I come in, re-enter, and I judge it right, I can immediately go back to flying at highest altitude capacity. Which makes me wonder, if I had enough fuel in my tanks, could I come back in, fly over a bit, and then go into orbit again? I should be able to, on paper I should be able to. I'll have to refuel fully though, and it'll be a bit of a waste of fuel. But for instance, if I was bringing an SSTO back from Laythe all the way to Kerbal, I would actually be able to, or even onto Laythe, seeing as you can use jet engines in Laythe's atmosphere, I'll be able to just put it straight back into orbit. Sounds like you could get some really good trick flying there. Something to think about in the future. But we're coming in, we bring it in. Oh, will he be able to land? Will Matka Kerman? Yes, he'll be able to land it. Yes, Matka Kerman, the only one trained how to use the SSTO. And I don't feel like ending it just there. So this is what would happen in reality. We'd land it, and then he'd immediately pilot it over to the spaceplane hangar, where it would go and be refueled fully, and then be able to go straight out and perform another mission. Unfortunately, its turning circle's kind of rubbish, so we have to use some RCS and do a 3-point turn. There we go. Bring that round, and then jet engines back on. We could use the RCS to push us forwards, but you know, jet engines back on, and there we go. And now the hangar bay doors would open, and we'd go in there, and we'd be refueled and, you know, fixed up and everything. If only that actually happened. What I want, instead of just going to Space Center to Spaceplane Hangar, I want it to actually try and move your craft into the doors, and the doors will open, and that would be really, really cool. But anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked the video, please do like the video. Thank you very much for watching again, and I shall see you all next time.